What is going on? It's your boy MJ coming at you with another episode of the Fantasy Fumble. I'm here with Joe the Birdman. Joe, how the hell you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, man. It was another good week of fantasy football. And today's Veterans Day, so I want to thank all the veterans out there, including you. You guys are the reason that we have our freedom here in the United States of America. And a lot of people take that for granted, but I sure don't.
No, man, I'll tell you, I'm a red-blooded patriot from Florida. I'm a Florida man, so I go out and I catch wild animals. It's fun, right? If I was in Miami right now, I'd be walking around the neighborhood with my basket picking up frozen iguanas because them about to be dinner later. All right. So, but regardless, I'm definitely a supporter as well. This is just a tool, guys.
That's
It's
right.
all in the eye of the beholder, man. Just
Man, the Florida is the Australia of the United States, man. It really is.
It is, man. It's a wild place, but you know what? It's beautiful, man.
Oh yeah,
I
I
love
love
it
it
out
too.
here. But anyways, before we get all mushy gushy on Florida, first we got to get into the news and notes, right?
Of course we do, but first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents aren't willing to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez, find land for the free and home for the brave.
Welcome back, ballers. Let's get into some news and notes. A few things that we got to touch on. Of course, there are more injuries. Denver Broncos, J.K. Dobbins could be placed on IR with a foot injury. Jaguars, as you know, Travis Hunter underwent surgery for his knee, but initially thought it was just going to be a few weeks. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. Packers' Romeo Doubs suffered a chest injury, and that status is still up in the air. And Garrett Wilson is expected to miss at least 3 to 4 weeks because of his knee injury. You know, we thought we were getting him back, not the case. Wide receiver Rashad Bateman, I know not many people have him rostered, but he suffered an ankle sprain, and his status is up in the air for week 11 as well. And unfortunately, I know you have this guy rostered in a few leagues. Dalton Kincaid is considered week to week because of a hamstring injury, which really sucks. I actually wish I would have accepted that trade from you in hindsight, but even with the injury, I really do like him if he's healthy. And another tight end, Gadsden, has a bruised quad, which is much better than we initially thought with that knee injury. It's something that's going to be day to day, so he could still play in week 11, but he's probably going to miss. And then some really good news that I wasn't expecting. Quarterback Joe Burrow said he wants to be able to return for week 13 against the Ravens. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but that would be incredible. He's probably on waivers in some of your leagues, so snatch him up if you've got an extra IR spot or just a bench spot you're not using.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at players like that, right? You want to make sure you're getting players that could possibly help you out during the fantasy playoffs, right? Weeks 13 through 17 or 18, depending on what leagues you're in. Most most competitive leagues end week 17. That's your championship. So definitely he's not available in any of my leagues, but if you guys got a chance to get him or even buy low on him, great opportunity.
Yeah, I haven't looked in all my leagues, but I know in most of my leagues he's rostered, but there's a chance he's out there. And it's the same thing with RJ Harvey. I actually grabbed him off waivers a couple weeks ago. You know, I expected J.K. Dobbins to get hurt at some point. I thought it would probably be a little bit earlier than week 10, but regardless, RJ Harvey had a couple big games. So I was like, man, I'll just grab him up. After that big game, someone dropped him. I can't really make sense of that. But I grabbed him up. He had another big game. And then, of course, I started him and he had a dud. But for the rest of the season, he looks pretty good too. So check the waivers. See if RJ Harvey's out there. There is a chance.
Yeah, and if not, buy low on him or buy at cost right now because he's definitely going to be a good play for the rest of the season.
As well as Travion Henderson. He's right in that same bucket. You know, we are always talking about both of those guys. And Travion's going to get probably another start this week. Now, I'm not exactly sure what's up with Ramondre, but I doubt he's playing in week 11.
Yeah, I think he misses another week. He better saddle up as that situational running back because Travion Henderson will be taking that job because he is very much as advertised explosion wise. So he's gonna run everybody, down like he did. He's a very explosive back.
We've been saying it all season. We finally get that validation. We knew it was coming.
But other than that, speaking of waiver wire, there's at this point it's slim pickings, right? You're this far in the season, you're not going to have a lot of options. Right now, you're looking at situations like, if this person were to go down, would his replacement get that kind of workload? And there are a couple like sleeper picks that you can look up, like. For example, Blake Corum has gotten 12 touches in each of the last 3 weeks, right? So he's been steadily getting that role, right? He hasn't gotten any touchdowns, right? But I think he will be taking one here and there, especially with the Rams, how much they score. I think it's a strong possibility. So, but obviously, the other guy is Brian Robinson Jr., right?
Man, he looked good last week, didn't he?
He did. I think they're gonna start carving him up a role because if you look at Kyle Shanahan offenses historically, he runs his running backs to the ground. So if he could give him that Jordan Mason role, right, where he's kind of like running the ball later on in the season and he becomes more involved, like that's somewhere where obviously if you have him rostered, you can benefit, especially if you have another injury, right? Because the injury apocalypse just keeps on coming, buddy.
Yeah, nonstop all season. And another guy I actually kind of like is Christian Watson because, Green Bay's so banged up and their offense is all over the place. But, I mean, who else can he throw the ball to? With all those receivers still out and Tucker Kraft going down, I feel like he's a good play too.
Yeah, I think the problem with Green Bay is Matt LaFleur needs to understand that they're a run-first team now. And they could play it off the run. So when they played the Eagles, they played a tight game, but they didn't take any chances, right? They kept calling the same plays. They got pretty stale. So they got to kind of figure that out. But I think that is a perfect opportunity to get players like that because they don't have it figured out yet. And fantasy football is just like the stock market. You're going to have waves of positive flow. So if your guy's dominating early on in the season, that schedule gets harder, there's a good chance he might start to fall off. So that's an opportunity where you can just sell high on that player. Perfect player. I'm gonna talk about it here in a little bit. I don't want to give too much away, but that's gonna be coming up in our trade targets. Boom.
Now, my first trade target is one that it might surprise you a little bit, but I think there's some people that would bite. Actually, both of mine are going to surprise you, but I think people should be going after Saquon Barkley. This is going to have a high ticket price, but just based on the last few weeks, it might be a little bit lower than you think. He's performed well below his projection in the last 3 of his 4 games, and he has another tough matchup against Detroit this week. But after that, he has a very nice schedule for the rest of the season and into the fantasy playoffs. Check this out. As I said, week 11, he's got the Lions. But then week 12, he's got the Cowboys. 13, he's got the Bears. 14, the Chargers, who are like middle of the pack. Then 15, the Raiders. Week 16, the Commanders. And week 17, the Bills. So if you can manage to get him, if you can kind of get someone to focus on, hey, look, he's not the same guy. Look at the last 3 out of 4 weeks. He's not the same guy. You might be able to get someone a bite in a 2-for-1, or someone that's just really struggling and needs to make the playoffs and they have a roster spot they need to fill. You might be able to get him a little bit lower than you think. I think he'll probably still have a high price, but that schedule is just absolutely delicious. And I think if you highlight those bad games and focus on someone that's in need, you could get your fantasy team loaded for the playoffs.
Okay. Yeah. No, I hear that. Definitely a good way to like try to pitch that idea. Hey, instead of having your best player give you duds, you can split it up in 2 players that'll give you a guaranteed 15 to 20 a game. So if I were to try to break down a superstar, that's, strategically, that's how I've always like patterned my trade routes and stuff like that. That's why I've always been pretty successful in the past, is just because you got to, move around pieces till you get what you want.
Yeah, build that depth and use it to your advantage.
Especially if you got a guy that's trying to win week to week, they might be willing to give it up if there's an injury. Like right now, Bucky Irvin, you're never going to get it any cheaper than you are right now. So if you're making a move for him, go after it, because once he comes back, he's just going to be probably the top fantasy play, because the Bucks have a sweet schedule, fantasy playoffs.
I did manage to get him in one league, and now I'm like, damn it, what's going on with Bucky? But let's wait and see.
Yeah, but don't worry, that's not my trade target. What I want to talk about is somebody that I always end up talking about these guys the week after I make a move for them, because I feel like I want to make sure that my thought process is getting there. So I don't know if you noticed, but I ended up getting Nico Collins in both of my leagues. I was like, okay, David Mills, right? Like, he's not really feeding him the ball like that. Like, he had an okay game the last game. But one thing that I would say is you buy at cost for Nico. So right now he's averaging like 15, 16. So you value him like a wide receiver too. But obviously he's going to have games where he might get a higher ceiling. But if you look back at the last 2 games for Nico, he had 14 receptions on 26 targets. So that means he's getting 8 targets a game. 13 targets a game in the last 2 games. So the guy has been absolutely peppered with targets, right? And then he's been getting it from backup David Mills. 26 targets in the last 2 games. That's not by mistake. He's the focal point on that offense. Now they might get CJ Stroud back. I see him on a positive uptick. Texans have a hit or miss end of season schedule, like a couple good games, couple bad games. But I think when you're the number 1 option on a team that has underperformed in the first half of the season, typically this is where those teams, those contenders, start really getting that ball rolling and getting their offense clicking and people in their place, right? Especially when, one of that main piece missing is your franchise quarterback. So just kind of give you an idea, I actually broke down the schedule for us. So this is playoff schedule, and so these defenses that they're facing over the last 4 weeks, they allow the highest completion percentage allowed. So for example, Kansas City allows that's week 14. People would think that's a tough matchup for them, but actually Kansas City is 31st in the league with allowing 72% completion percentage on passes to opposing offenses. So that's telling you that people that are playing against Kansas City are throwing the ball a lot, and they're getting a lot of completions, right? Despite the fact that they have a shutdown cornerback, right? It's going everywhere else. That it's a pass funnel defense. Now Arizona is coming in week 15. They allow 64%, which is 11th in the league. So they're actually a better defense when it comes to that. Las Vegas is week 16. They are getting allowing 66% completion percentage, which is 21st in NFL. So they're in the bottom of the pack. And the only tough matchup he does have is week 17. So your fantasy championship, he is playing LA Chargers. They allow 59%, which is actually fourth best in the league, which tells you it's going to be a tough game. But I think when it comes to big games like that, playmakers make plays, right? So I'll take my chance on a bad defense with a player like Nico Collins because he's just now starting to get his steam going on his trajectory.
Yeah, and I believe he has Tennessee this week, which should be a good matchup. And then I could be wrong, but I think the Colts defense is pretty decent, but I might be remembering that wrong, but I think he's got Tennessee and then the Colts, and I'm not really worried about either of those teams either. So I do like the Colts as a fantasy defense, but in like as a real life defense, they're not that intimidating. You can get by them for sure. Now, the second gentleman I want to talk about is in the same bucket as Saquon Barkley, and that's Bijan Robinson. Similar to Barkley, the last few weeks have been somewhat disappointing for Bijan, especially with the goal line touches going to Tyler Algier, who had 2 touchdowns last week, and Bijan had 0. And the schedule isn't nearly as appealing as Saquon, but Bijan's a top 5 running back, and I think if you want to get him on your team, you can highlight the same thing as I said with Barkley. Just go over the recent weeks and the somewhat difficult schedule and try to get him on your team. I feel like if you target, and the chances are someone that has Bijan and Barkley's probably doing pretty well, but you never know, man. It's fantasy. Maybe they loaded up and they were struggling at wide receiver. So if you've got someone they need that really needs to make the playoffs, give them a 2-for-1. Get Bijan.
Definitely a great strategy. Always the best currency, man. You get somebody 2 good starters, you get yourself a superstar.
You say, hey, you want 2 guys that are going to get you 15, or you want 1 guy that might get you 20? We'll see if that works. I would try it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now for my trade target is actually a trade target to sell high on. That's Mr. Breece Hall. One of the reasons, or one of the main reasons, obviously, I think the Jets themselves are very limited offensively. They don't have a lot of weapons. It's basically Garrett Wilson's going to be out for a while. So now who's their best receiver going to be? Donnie Mitchell, the guy they just got from Colts. So that means they're going to lean heavily on Breece Hall. And although that looked good this last game, the season is very long, right? And if he's getting the ball 20, 25 times a game and he's getting his ass hit every time they're stacking that box, they know that, the Jets aren't going to beat them through the air. So they got to shut down the run. So that's somebody that I think, because his next few games are pretty easily, you could get him to somebody to bite on him just because they feel his trajectory is on the way up. And I actually did his numbers, and it's a mixed bag for fantasy playoffs. So week 14, Miami, obviously that'd be an easy matchup. They're 26 in the league, allowing 139 rush yards per game. So you're gonna feast on Miami, but then obviously Jacksonville surprisingly has been stout against the run. They're 5th best in the league, allowing only 91 yards. And then, of course, you have New Orleans, who's allowing 123 yards, which is bottom half of the league for the worst. And then New England, which is actually number 1 in the league, that's only allowing 79 yards per game. So that, for me, I don't want my, one of my best players to be, unavailable to me the last game of the season, right? I could afford it maybe early on, in the playoffs. But when it comes to week 17, you want your best players playing. And since he has a couple bad matchups, I think that wear and tear is just going to break him down for the rest of the season. But it's super easy to sell on him because he has 39 carries in the last 2 games. That's 216 yards. So he's given over 100 yards a game. And then he has 3 receptions for 66 yards and 3 total touchdowns. So if someone's like needing a running back, you could get yourself a really high quality wide receiver or wide receiver running back package or whatever it is you work out. I managed to trade a couple players and get me a quarterback. So it depends on what your needs are. Or if you're anything like me, I just lost a tight end again. So besides Kincaid, Rondé Gaston, somebody I was big on, he got hurt, but that comes with fantasy football. You just gotta adapt and move on and rotate.
And I could see Brees going either way, but I totally agree. He's going to light it up for a couple weeks, and then defense is probably going to know how to handle him. But you're right, man. There's nothing going on with that offense. I don't think Mason Taylor is going to have too much of an impact because Justin Fields, I'm a fan of Justin Fields, but he's not making it happen through the air or with his legs. So, I mean, you're in a position now where you're only going to be leaning on for your entire offense, Brees Hall. So that might work for a couple weeks and then defenses catch up. I could see just the sheer volume making him a solid start for the rest of the season. But if he's the only focal point, it could bottle him up pretty well too.
Also, if they get blown out early, they abandon the run.
True.
So Brees Hall could even get less carries. He could get 10 to 12 instead of his usual 20 on games where they're just getting their ass beat.
Definitely possible.
You don't want to gamble on that, man, because it's easier to predict. Jets getting their ass hammered through the rest of the season because they're the worst team in the league right now.
Yeah.
But I'd rather bet on someone else. Like for example, RJ Harvey or something having a better rest of the season, because they may not outscore them for the season as a whole, but when I need them, who's going to show up, right? The best ability is availability. So if you're anything like me, the injury bugs eating my asshole all year long, man. I can't get away from it. I just finally released Travis Hunter. I'm on a Joe Mixon wish train right now. All right, Joe Mixon, come on, dog. You need to come back. You guys are making a run.
And you've got Bucky too. I know.
Bucky, and I got Omarion Hampton. so like my second best back on both teams has been out for at least 6 weeks. So I'm surviving though, man. I'm at 5 wins, 5-5, and 6-4. I'm fighting, dog.
And your total points are way up there. So if it comes down to it, you should probably get that edge.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, dude, that's a solid point about Brees too. If they're getting blown out, they're going to abandon the run, and then it's just going to be a mess. So
it's going to be hard to watch, man. I rather when that comes on, I'm like, let me go check my grill or something. Let me go do something else.
Yeah. Well, I always got the red zone on, so I just will pay attention to a different game. Now let's get into our hot matchups. What's your hot matchup, Manny?
So I ended up going with a game that's going to be a lot of fun. Seahawks versus Rams. I mean, that's going to be a straight shootout. Vegas has them at 48.5. I feel like that game's going to be over, man, because Matt Stafford has had I think 3-4 touchdown games already this year.
Yeah,
he's been killing it. And you know what? Puka on one side, Devontae Adams on the other. Those are two guys that are guaranteed to get you 20 a game. Stafford 20, 25. So, you're starting those guys all day long. And then, of course, Kyron Williams, right? Like he's been on a tear as well. So a lot of really great pieces on that Rams offense. And, of course, the Seahawks offense, you can't forget the number one wide receiver in the league, JSN, right? He's been tearing it up, a route technician. And then Darnold's actually had a really good fantasy season as well, man. He's been scoring a lot of points. I think he's in the top 3 right now overall.
I didn't know that. Yeah, he's been killing it, though.
Yeah, he has. He's been absolutely lights out. And then when it comes to the running back situation, I don't have a high expectation for the Seahawks. I think you shoot for a nice flex floor with a potential, starter ceiling, right? Like Charbonnet. And I think Charbonnet's that guy. He showed it this last game, right? They gave Kenneth Walker a lot of touches. They gave Charbonnet a lot of touches, but Charbonnet ended up with 85 yards in the touchdown. And the touchdown was on a 3-yard scamper. So he's consistently getting that role. But
he's been very consistent and a pleasant surprise for sure.
He's by no means. I'm saying he's your wide receiver too. But if you're looking at running back too. But I'd say like an RB3/flex, a guy that is going to get a solid production. I'm pretty happy with the result.
Most definitely. I have him in a couple leagues and have been like real hesitant to start him, but had to in a few leagues. And I'm like, damn, he actually came to play.
15. Let's get it.
Yeah, he's had a couple really solid games. So I like that too. Now for my hot matchup, I've got the Bucks versus the Bills.
Ooh.
Both teams are 6-3 and coming off a tough loss. And I guarantee Baker and Josh Allen will bring their A game on Sunday. Baker doesn't have his typical arsenal, which looked like it could have been a problem before the bye week, but he bounced back last week despite losing to the Patriots. He did have a good game. And it's a similar story with Emeka Egbuka, who is absolutely crushing it over the first 5 weeks of the season, but then fell off for 3 weeks before the bye, but he bounced back last week too. And Cade Otton, he's been really solid. We saw this last year too, when Tampa was missing Evans and Godwin. So this shouldn't come as a surprise, but I love him again this week and for the rest of the season. And Rachaad White has not been living up to expectations over the last month in Bucky's absence, but we have seen him perform at a high level. And I still like him against the Bills because they are struggling as a run defense. And on the other side of the field, you got Josh Allen. He's going to come into this game pissed off, which is great because he plays really well when he's pissed off. If he loses, he comes back strong. And I expect this to be one of his best performances of the year. James Cook started the season on fire and fell off a little bit, but he's still a lineup lock, even against a respectable Tampa Bay run defense. And Khalil Shakir has actually been a lot better than I expected. He's been solid all year and should have a big day with Dalton Kincaid out this week. And as far as the other wide receivers, your guess is as good as mine, but I think Keon Coleman should get more targets and have a respectable day too.
Oh yeah. And another, do you have any updates on Mike Evans or has he been practicing or?
I haven't gotten an update on him or Godwin. So I'm guessing it's a few more weeks, right? I don't know.
Yeah. It seems like these teams are being more secretive with their information.
Even
lately.
with Bucky too. Like, I don't know what's going on. And Pearsall, like, what the hell's going on with him too?
Yeah, no one knows. And yet here we are, but one thing I wanted to say, Tez Johnson is a nice flex play. If you're looking for like that flex plugin, I like him as well.
I'm glad you mentioned him. I forgot to bring him up. He has been very solid. Like, he's been deceivingly putting up a good amount of points, like double-digit points most weeks. And last week was another. I think did he have 2 touchdowns last week? He looked good. That's all I remember. He looked really good. I think he had over 20 fantasy points.
He definitely had 2 touchdowns.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him. He's definitely a flex play in my opinion. Now let's get into our cold calls. Now I'll go first for cold call, and I might surprise you a little bit with this one, but my cold call is the Chiefs versus the Broncos. The Chiefs are rested and probably ready to go after the bye week, so I could be completely wrong on this one. But the Broncos have been pretty nasty on defense, and I feel like this is going to be a very tough game for both teams because the Chiefs' defense has been really good too. Obviously, Mahomes, Rashee Rice, and Kelsey are in your lineup, but I would expect them to give you more of a solid floor than a ceiling this week. And I wouldn't play Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, or Kareem Hunt unless you really don't have a better option. And then Bo Nix, he's a top 10 quarterback, so he should probably be in your lineup unless you have another stud quarterback. But the rest of the team gives me a lot of pause. Dobbins is out, so RJ Harvey should get a lot more volume, but this is a tough matchup for him as the starter. It's going to be, difficult for him to walk into that starting role, and I think he should be more of a flex play. And the Chiefs, they're even better against the pass. I know you said some stats earlier that kind of go against what I'm about to say, but It's just tough to gauge the wide receiver room in Denver as a whole. So, like, Sutton has been struggling for weeks, and Troy Franklin has been getting a lot more targets and fantasy points than Sutton. So it's like, who would you rather play out of the two of them? I don't know. I don't know. And again, the Chiefs have been pretty solid on defense. So if you look at the last 4 games, Sutton has averaged 6.5 targets and 10.7 fantasy points per game. Franklin has averaged 9.3 targets and 15.8 fantasy points per game. And like, this isn't just like a couple big games skew these stats. This has been every week that Troy Franklin has been playing better than Courtland Sutton. But with that said, I still don't like either of them this week unless it's a flex play. Similar to RJ Harvey. I like all these guys as a flex play, not as like a wide receiver or a running back too.
Agreed. You're gonna throw a bunch of shit on the wall, see what sticks, Take that approach.
Pretty much with those guys. I mean, if you got Troy Franklin or Courtland Sutton, you're probably going to play him because
what better option do you have?
There's not too many options, especially with bye weeks and injuries. But lower your expectations all around.
Yeah. Now, for my cold call, I ended up going for a game not because it's two bad teams playing, but it's because it's two really good. I wouldn't say two really good defense. One really good defense and one terrible offense are going at it. All right. And that's going to be the Ravens versus the Browns. So obviously the Ravens are the terrible defense. And then the Browns are the terrible offense, right? So they're going to go at it. It's going to be an ugly game. It's a divisional game in Cleveland. So it's going to be cold. Lamar Jackson is great, but the Browns have been really good this year at shutting opposing quarterbacks down. So I expect it to be another game where they're just, punting all game, kind of like the Philly, Green Bay game we just saw. Very slow, very dried out, very stale offenses, and I don't think the Ravens are going to be stale like that. I just think that the Browns are going to do a really good job of shadowing Lamar. Right? Like, what if Myles Garrett is Lamar's quarterback spy tomorrow? You know what I mean? And he doesn't line up in the dirt. So that's something that can be concerning for Lamar or like fantasy players in general. I will definitely say, you're going to play Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, on the Ravens side, maybe even Zay Flowers, right? He's going to be a solid flex. But on the Browns, if it's not Quinshon Judkins, you're not going to play anybody else. Jerry Jeudy got his first touchdown this year on what was probably his 10th reception on the year. It's,
finally, I told everyone to sit him last week. I said, actually, no, I'm sorry. I didn't say to sit him. I told everyone to drop him last week.
Oh,
flip us back. I don't know how you did that.
Oh, no. For some reason, it ended. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, I told everyone to drop Jerry Jeudy last week, and then he puts up like 20 fantasy points. But look at every other game this season. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, no confidence there. But the games, I mean, the spread is at 40, so that's actually really low.
Ooh,
Even
damn.
Vegas thinks it's going to be a slow game. But like I said, you're going to play those guys, get your flex, and don't expect them to win your fantasy matchup this week.
Yeah, and I think Zay Flowers may get a few more targets with Rashad Bateman out, but yeah, that's a tough matchup, man. And even the Baltimore has been terrible, but they are playing a little better.
Denzel Ward is going to be shadowing Zay Flowers. Yeah, Denzel Ward's a stud, man. So it's just going to be a long day, man. Very long day.
That's a good point. But and also like not just offense, Baltimore's defense has been stepping it up too. So it could be tough sledding all around.
All you got to do is shut down the run, man. Dylan Gabriel ain't winning that game. Maybe get a little spark with Shador, but
I
Browns
feel like
at this point aren't even trying.
Yeah, I feel like even Judkins is a little bit more of a flex play this week too, just because Baltimore has been shutting down the run just the last couple weeks.
It's going to be a long, tough sledding, man.
And the Njoku and Fannin, they aren't really guys that you can put in at tight end with confidence anymore. Now let's get into our shit calls. Now, for my shit call, both of my cold calls last week were actually high-scoring games. Most of the guys I expected to shit the bed, including Jerry Jeudy, as we just discussed, came to play on Sunday. So, as they say, any given Sunday. But yeah, both of my cold calls were pretty high-scoring games.
Now, for my shit call, I made the shitty decision 2 or 3 weeks ago of trading for Joe Mixon in both my leagues. I am still unaware what the hell happened to Joe Mixon's foot. Did he blow it off with the firework?
Add it to the list, man.
Did he get it bitten off by a gator? Was he hanging out in Florida? Like I don't know what's up with Joe Mixon, man. I just want to find out when his timetable is. If he's out for the rest of the season, just tell me and stop wasting my RR spot, right?
Yeah.
I need some updates. So Nick Casario, it's been 30 days since you updated the media. What the fuck is going on with Joe Mixon? All right.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way about Brandon Ayuk. I don't have him in any of my lineups, but I keep checking every week just to look for an update. Nothing. Radio silence. And it's been that way, just like Joe Mixon, all year.
The problem is we know Ayuk tore his ACL, so we're like, oh, he's not coming back maybe for later on, right? Joe Mixon, we're like, what the hell happened, bro?
I thought they'd both be back by so.
Man. But anyways, that's my shitty call is, invest in whatever capital I had because I know I overpaid.
Those are the kind of bold moves you got to make, though. You got to play to win.
Pay the piper. I'm sorry, ballers. It's that time, man. The time we all hate. It's the end of the show. We want to go ahead and let you guys know, obviously, we're getting towards the fantasy playoffs now, so a lot of that advice is going to start changing a little bit, right? Based upon it's no longer going to be, who to go after, trade targets and stuff like that. It's going to be like, hey, who's going to be your best start? So this is where you guys have to send in your questions. If you have a dilemma of who to start on game day, hey, this guy's out. Who should I pick up on my waiver wire? Let us know. Submit it. Just screenshot it. Waiver wire pool. Who should I add? And we'll definitely help you out, guys. We'll comment right under, and give you our opinion. So, these games are going to matter more than the first ones because the whole thing about fantasy football is you got to win those games early on because once you get to the middle of the season, you kind of know what you're going to get from your players, right? So it's no more of that, and you're going to be jockeying for position in the fantasy playoffs. If you're anything like my leagues, 7-man playoffs, right? First seed gets a bye, so that way it kind of keeps it more competitive. So,
oh yeah, you all want that bye. I have a bye in most of my leagues, and as Manny just mentioned, that trade target segment that we love to do only has a couple more weeks before it's irrelevant because I don't know when the deadline is in your league, but for most leagues it's 13 or 14, and it's creeping up on us. And actually, shit, it might even be before that. But anyway, it might even be like week 12. I'd have to double check my league. But yeah, that trade targets are coming to an end because you got that for a couple more weeks at most. And then you just got to decide who you're going to play. And we have been, if you look at our trade targets, if you look at our just conversations in the past, we've been on point. So, if you got some questions, we'd be happy to help.
Oh yeah. And regardless, tune in next week again, guys. Same time, same place. You know where to find us here. Tell your mothers, tell your grandmothers, tell your aunties, tell your sisters. I'm just kidding. They're not going to care. They're just going to tell you you're a fucking immature little boy.
Yeah. Oh, you're playing with your fake football team. That's what I hear.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. You have a good one, guys. We love you. Take care.